Alaska is a state located in the western United States on the northwest extremity of North America, a semi-enclave of the US. It borders the Canadian province of British Columbia and the Yukon Territory. With mountains to climb, rivers to raft, and glaciers to slide over, Alaska's unspoiled wildlands provide some of the best wildlife habitats in the country. It also offers beautiful views and the ultimate wilderness. Alaska is famous mainly for its complete absence of snakes. This is something that most people, especially those who come from venomous snake countries, greatly appreciate. Alaska has no lizards, freshwater turtles, or even snakes. With that, discoveries have been made in Alaska that scare scientists. But what terrifying discoveries are these? Let's find out. North America's first inhabitants. According to scientific evidence, the Bering Strait, which is located between Alaska and Russia, was once frozen over. This was supposedly the link between Asia and North America about 20,000 years ago. Most of the migrating nomadic tribes would use this land bridge to move from one continent to another. These were the first people to settle on this continent. Eventually, when the Ice Age was over, the water melted, leaving a barrier between the two continents. Now, there is a gap between Russia and Alaska. In November 2014, archaeologists believe that they came across the tomb of North America's oldest settlers. According to them, these are Paleo-Indians. This grave is said to be 11,500 years old and contain the remains of 3 infants. It is at the Upper Sun River Archaeological Site in central Alaska. The tools here were probably used as spears or knives. During the Ice Age, the infant mortality was quite high. This was because of the harsh conditions that were there at the time. The active volcano in Alaska, Fourpeaked. On September 17, 2006, it was a pretty peaceful day in south-central Alaska. The sky was unusually clear for the time of year. However, all this changed when several people from Kodiak, Homer, and Anchorage reported a gray plume of ash rising into the atmosphere. All these people eventually called the Alaskan Volcano Observatory. They reported that the plume was coming from just southwest of the Douglas volcano. This is close to the location of a small secondary peak. This secondary peak was referred to as Fourpeaked, and at the time, it was thought to be extinct or dormant. However, all the people saw the initial phase of an unexpected phreatic eruption from a volcano that had supposedly erupted again at least 10,000 years ago, maybe even longer. This eruption was just a friendly reminder that volcanoes can go for thousands of years between individual eruptions, just as it was seen with McDonald Island in Australia. This volcano erupted 75,000 years ago before erupting again in 1962. Peninsula de Alaska. Alaska is the last state in the United States of America that remains unexplored. To date, scientists are still finding out new things about this massive state, which is the size of the country of Venezuela. There is an area that is known as the Ring of Fire, which is a hotspot for volcanoes. Alaska is located just next to it. In 2013, scientists discovered 12 mini-active volcanoes in Alaska's panhandle. These are some relatively small volcanoes when you compare them with Alaska's Pavlov stratovolcano. According to some thermal imagery that was taken of the area, you can see that there is a lot of activity here. However, most of these volcanoes have underwater traces of volcanic activity, which can be seen throughout the state. This is most evident along the coastline. The new Eddystone Rock shows how some past and present volcanoes can shape the state's geographic landscape. Vampire fish falling from the sky. Imagine waking up one day and finding some very weird creatures on your lawn. What would you do? Well, in June of 2015, something very weird happened in Alaska. A bunch of vampire fish, which are also known as lampreys, were seen falling out of the sky and landing on people's lawns. It was as though these fish were raining from the sky. Some of you watching this video have yet to learn what lampreys are. But let me tell you this, these creatures are terrifying to even look at. They look like something you would only see in horror films or in your nightmares. It looks like a cross between a snake, an eel, a worm, and something like a leech. They can grow to a length of between 5 and 40 inches. They attack other fish by literally sucking the life out of them. This is expected for a creature with 11 or 12 rows of nothing but teeth wrapping around its mouth like a ring. There have been various theories about why these creatures ended up on people's lawns. Some say that seagulls had collected the dead fish from the ocean and were dropping their bodies from the sky. Others say there were probably high tide or heavy rains, eventually pushing them towards the residential area. But nobody really knows how all these fish ended up on people's lawns. Orange slime. When we hear the word slime, we immediately think of the gooey kid's toy, but this one is different. Alaska still has a lot of land and wilderness that remain untouched and unexplored by humans today. In some of these places, the beauty is simply outstanding. However, in a small fishing village, there was once a slimy orange goo that was invading their coastlines. This must have been frightening to wake up to. Long before Alaska even became a part of the US, Eskimos were the main inhabitants of these parts. And not once did they see anything like this. The strange goo lasted for a few days before completely disappearing. However, this left a lot of people in shock. Most were worried about the long-term consequences that the strange goo would cause. At first, they believed the goo was, in fact, millions of microscopic eggs. But they later came to believe that it could have been some strange form of toxic fungal spores. Whatever it was, no one really found out. The basking shark. This is basically a large-nosed sea monster. The basking shark is something I hope not to run into at any point in my life. They will swim around the surface of the water looking for plankton, despite the size of this shark. Their mouths are also pretty scary because it looks as though it'll eat you whole. But even with that, they have a small appetite and eat some of these tiny organisms. Basking sharks will go years without being spotted, but once you spot one, you are in luck. More often than not, these sharks are always swimming around in large numbers, and they are mainly found in the Atlantic and the Pacific. As of 2019, these sharks have even been declared endangered species because of overfishing. They have some biological mysteries behind them, such as having massive mouths but only eating very little. As for females, they only have one functioning ovary, and it's always on the right side. The giant halibut. Let's face it, Alaska has some giant fish. Some of them are so large that they will leave you wondering what the people are feeding them here. A giant halibut was once caught by a man named Greg Brewer. The reason for saying that it was a giant halibut was, well, because it weighed 327 pounds. This can leave you with more questions than answers. One such question is, how did they even reel it into the boat? It is said that the Alaskan halibut can grow up to 8 feet long and 5 feet wide, with the maximum weight of up to 500 pounds. Now that is massive. King bear skull. Alaska is said to have a lot of wildlife, and there might still be some species of animal living here that are unknown to the rest of the world. Some tribes, such as the Inuit tribes, had legends of what is referred to as a king bear. There was a bear that was larger than the average bear. It is believed that this could have been a subspecies of polar bear that was much larger and existed around 1300 years ago. Archaeologists came across a larger than usual polar bear skull on a northern Alaskan beach in 2014. They believe that it may be evidence that the creature in the legends was true. The skull was 16 inches long, much longer than a modern bear skull. Imagine how large that bear must have been with this skull alone. New species of whale. In 2014, there was a mysterious and unknown species of whale that washed up along the shore of an Alaskan island. The scientists were stunned when they came across this whale's body, and they believed it was an entirely different whale species. There were even pictures of what this rare species of whale looks like, and it appears as though it has a black beak, almost like a dolphin. However, it is of a different color. Another whale species looks similar to this one, known as Baird's beaked whale, but this one is about 2 to 3 times the size. Giant crabs. The giant crabs, known as red king crabs, are just that, giant. These crabs are massive given the fact that they can grow up to 25 pounds. They have a leg span of about 5 feet, meaning they can overshadow someone 5 feet tall or less. Fishing for these crabs have become quite common in Alaska, with about 100 boats going out to fish for them over the course of 2 to 3 months. Millions of these crabs are then harvested. This must be an Alaskan delicacy. Giant ragfish. Fishing is quite popular in Alaska. It's how most people make their living there. From time to time, these fishermen will catch massive fish. The coast of Alaska is mainly popular for salmon, crab, and halibut. However, in January 2006, fishermen caught a massive ragfish that was about 65 inches long. The fishermen were surprised when they discovered it had washed up on shore. The only other time such a massive ragfish was spotted was about 40 years ago. The one we see now was spotted at Glacier Bay National Park, which protects about 523,000 acres of pristine land. Ragfish mainly dwell in deep waters, feeding on jellyfish, octopi, and squid, and in some cases, they can grow up to 7 feet long. Giant mosquitoes. Giant frogs, snakes, bees, and giant mosquitoes, we've all seen them in movies, but in Alaska, giant mosquitoes really do exist. Alaska has some exaggerated animals. The mosquito here are so massive that locals even joke and call them the state bird. You will find out why in a few seconds. The largest of all of them is known as the snow mosquito. These mosquitoes are so large that they are about the size of a full-grown American honeybee. That is really massive, but at least you will see them coming at you. The swarm of mosquitoes are so aggressive that they have been known to chase herds of caribou into the sea. Not only that, but they can even drain an entire caribou. Now that's just terrifying. So if you plan to visit Alaska, ensure you have a lot of bug repellent. Lake monster. It's no surprise that Alaska has a lake monster. I mean, even the fish are monsters of their own. Over at Iliana Lake, there is a supposed lake monster that has been spotted a number of times over the years. It has even been blamed for a number of deaths. The beast has been around for years and has even been named Ili the monster. The monster is said to be somewhere between 10 and 30 feet in length, with a square head that it uses to knock boats over. People are so determined to catch it that there is a 100,000 reward for anyone with concrete proof that it exists. One of the first sightings was by Babe Ellsworth and Bill Hammersley in 1942. They were flying over the lake when they noticed something moving in the water below. When they got down, they saw this long, massive creature flipping its tail side to side. Other pilots and boaters have also seen it, so just be careful the next time you decide to go skinny dipping. Massive veggies. Alaska is the land of massive things. Fish, beasts, mosquitoes, and now, produce. Since Alaska has some long summer days, it can grow some oversized produce. We're talking about a 35-pound head of broccoli, a 65-pound cantaloupe, and a 138-pound cabbage. Since they get about 20 hours of sunlight daily, they will keep growing non-stop. There's even an annual Alaska State Fair where people show off their massive produce. You will get all sorts of overgrown produce here. Ice worms. Ice worms are just that, ice worms. There's not much to know about them apart from the fact that they thrive on the ice. Now, that is unheard of, but then again, this is Alaska. Any sort of wildlife mystery is possible in Alaska. Regular worms will mostly become slower in cold times and eventually die off. However, this is vice versa for the ice worms in Alaska. During the cold season, when it is icy everywhere, this is when they are very active and fast. They will move around at this time, but the moment the temperature starts rising, they start becoming slower and eventually die off. These are not normal worms, but nobody can explain why that is. The Needle-Snout Monster. Well, the good thing about this monster is that it's from 200 million years ago. This monster's fossil was discovered in 2011 on an island just a few feet above sea level. At least it was discovered before it became completely extinct. This thing looks like an ancient iguana. It is a marine reptile and is a new discovery from that time. The thing was mainly roaming around Alaska around 200 million years ago. Now, the fossil of this creature is at the Museum of the North, and you can see that it literally had a razor-sharp snout. Pyrosomes. There are all sorts of weird things in the ocean and the sea, especially in Alaska. I mean, the people here have some extra large fish, and now it keeps getting weird with pyrosomes. These are tropical tube-shaped sea creatures, and they appear in the millions near Alaska. They began showing up in 2017, and scientists are still trying to figure out what's happening with them. They are foot-long tubes that glow in the sea, and they also look like deflated balloons in the water. There are so many of them that they are even clogging up fishermen's gear. Petroglyph Beach. A rocky beach in Juneau, Alaska, has a rare archaeological find that only reveals itself at low tide. There are over 40 different rock sketches decorating the rocks on the coast. These sketches are of salmon, whale, human faces, and a community. This is one of the oldest concentrations of ancient drawings in the world, and piecing it together was not easy. The real meaning of these petroglyphs are still a mystery, and they are slowly being washed away by the ocean. Buzzsaw shark. An Alaskan geology student named Richard Glenn found an oddly shaped rock while mapping geological formations on the Brooks Range of northern Alaska. The rock had a spiral shape that seemed to be that of a fossil shell. However, the difference is that the spiral shell was dotted with hundreds of teeth. After a long journey to the Smithsonian and back, the spiral set of teeth was discovered to be the jaw of a helicoprion, which is an extinct shark. The shark is also known as the buzzsaw shark. This shark's fossils are quite rare, given that their insides were made of cartilage that would not normally survive fossilization. This shark is known for its mysterious set of teeth that doesn't seem to belong to a predator. That's all for today. Which was the best part of the video? Let us know in the comments section below. Also, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel for more amazing content like this one. Thanks for watching. See you next time.